Hey, folks who dance on poles, ever thought about competing but worried about judgmental pole hobbyists? Want to enter a pole competition where it's actually run by strippers? Then you'll want to consider entering Script Down, Canada's first pole competition spearheaded by sex workers. The competition is on Friday, November 3rd at the Opera House in Toronto, and we are bringing in an internationally renowned pole artist like Jordan Kensley, Kiana Walker, Tia Jax, and Tara Meyer just to run workshops and also to judge the competition. Registration for the competition ends on July 31st, and yours truly will also be judging, so get your audition videos in and we'll see you there. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Stripped by Sia, your podcast for strippers, sex workers, and all the fancy naked people in between. I am your host, Steph Sia, aka Kimchi on stage. I am the host of the show. I'm the producer of the show. I'm a one-woman show here. If you are new here, this show is all about the destigmatization of sex work. And basically, as you might know, a lot of our profession is very stigmatized. We are a marginalized group of people. There are many different corners, many different facets of the sex industry and the adult industry. And I do this show because I really want to provide a very transparent approach to what sex work actually is and provide the knowledge and firsthand accounts and the lived experiences of sex workers. And I do that by bringing different guests on the show every single week, whether they're a performer, they're in front of the camera, maybe they're a producer behind the scenes, a director, maybe they're from a nonprofit organization that helps benefit sex workers. I really try to bring a diverse amount of people on the show to really paint a transparent approach, as I mentioned, to really give you an accurate depiction of what sex work is. So I have been doing for the show for about 4 years now. It's going strong. I'm really trying to touch on every single subject. There's a lot of different subjects I can cover, including today, which we will be talking with a brothel owner, which I will be announcing very, very shortly. We're going to get into it, but I do have a few people to thank and shout out first before we go on to all the things, and also completing my own introduction. I myself am a sex worker. I identify as such. I started off my time in the industry as a sugar baby 10 years ago. Also currently a stripper. I'm also a cam model and a digital content creator. So I do have a fan page and a subscription site where I make custom videos and get in touch with my fans and whatnot. And I do this all because I love the work and it's flexible, it's fun, money is good. And I do want to say a quick hello to some folks that are on our Patreon, because this show I just make for everyone. It's completely accessible, and I don't believe in gatekeeping. I just want to give all the information out there because there's a lot of people that listen to the show and use it as a resource, because a lot of people want to get into the industry or maybe just need to learn more things, because again, this industry is ever evolving and ever changing. So I do have a Patreon, which helps kind of fund the website, any kind of adult industry events that I attend, like XBiz that I attended last month. So I just want to say hello to some of the folks that are on the top tier of my Patreon, which is Snoo Stew. We've got Jay Suncern, we've got Justin Erickson, Ted McGuire, we've got Geyser, and Selena Money. You folks are across North America. I know a couple of you, they're from Germany as well, which is really amazing to hear that you guys are fans of the show from all these far off places. I just want to say thank you so much for your continued support over the past year and a bit. If you are interested in supporting the show financially, you can go ahead and check it out. It's patreon.com/strippedbysia, and there's different tiers you can choose from for as low as $4 all the way up to $11. Give it a peep, or send me a message about it. You do get exclusive video access to all the episodes that are on there, as well as all the bonus episodes. There's a lot of bonus episodes this year, which is kind of exciting. But yeah, feel free to help it out. Your support is greatly, greatly appreciated. Alongside that, I do want to say, give a brief shout out to the network that I'm on. It's Skyhawk After Dark TV, which is an adult industry network of podcasts. We have video casts, a lot of similar content that is along the same lines as this podcast as well. So if you're interested in learning more about the industry from different performers and talent, feel free to check them out. It is skyhawkafterdarktv.com. And last but not least, I did mention my website, Stripped by Sia, which was made by my lovely friend Anthony of Fox Digital Design. If you're in the market for perhaps getting a new website done, or maybe you have one done, you want to get that revamped a little bit, go check Anthony out at Fox Digital for some affordable pricing. He is giving all listeners of Stripped by Sia 20% off for his website services. So be sure to check him out. Go peep him a message and tell him I sent ya. It's foxdigital.design for 20% off for all of our listeners here. Okay, so we have done that. We've covered that ground. I'm super excited to get into today's episode and talk with the wonderful guest that I have on today. I am bringing on Miss Madame Bella Cummins on to the show this week to talk about brothel ownership, legalization in the state of Nevada, which is really exciting. I know I've only done a couple episodes of legalization in the past, one with Alice Little and Ariel Ganja on the show, but this is a different perspective and coming from an owner's perspective. And I just want to mention that Madame Bella is the owner and legal madame of a woman-owned and sex worker-run legal brothel called Bella's Hacienda Ranch, which is also the longest serving brothel in Wells, Nevada. She's also the author of American Madame, One Woman's Journey to Empowerment as a Proprietor of Sexual Services, which is her memoir, and also in the process, I think, of writing her other book called Sexual Healing. So a woman of many talents. I'm really excited to get into this conversation. So enough of myself talking. Bella, are you there?
I'm here. Hi, Steph. Thanks for having me on. And all of your audience that's listening, I'm thanking them too.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to get in touch with you today and to talk about all of the things, your tenure in the industry, how you got into the business, interview processes, your foundation as well. There's a lot of ground to cover, but perhaps I can throw it back to you and ask you how you got started in owning Bella's Hacienda Ranch.
Well, I was in my early 30s when I crossed paths with a man who was older than I was, and he really was a silent partner in this ranch that at that time went by Hacienda. And I was in several different careers at the time, but I always had an attraction to what I call the stiletto way of life. Uh-huh. And he was at a place in time in his life where the brothel needed to come into his ownership. And in doing that, he became quite indebted to, the fact of buying it and the other business that he had, which was masonry. And he needed for me to step up and take over the bookkeeping and to figure out how to run a legal brothel. And it was at a time when brothels were the most challenged because the industry is in a rural area, and because it really travels mostly down the I-80 interstate corridor, mm-hmm. All the towns that all these brothels are licensed in, all the traffic went driving by. So it was time to find a new way of being seen in a location that was always across the tracks. Mm. So I learned that numbers never lie, and I learned how how to be a businesswoman differently, which meant understanding, the cost of things and how to run it where the payments could be made on time, and yet the women could get to a place where they could make money again. So in that process of the bookkeeping and being all of that, then it was time to put me on the license so that if anything happened to him, that I could carry on and run the business successfully, which did happen.
Wow. Okay, so that's quite the story. So I guess it's almost something that you almost fell into by chance.
In a way, prior to David and I marrying, I had a restaurant in Mound House just outside of Carson City, and it was in the same industrial area as 4 brothels. And so all of these owners would come into my restaurant and I'd hear them talking. They'd invite me over to see them. And I could appreciate what they were doing, but I knew that their locations really didn't have anything to do with me. And then, of course, as I said, the mid-'80s, along comes David, and he was a guy that wasn't good at business. He was really good at seeing something that should and could work out financially for him. He just couldn't do it. He didn't have that ability to take the books and say, oh, well, here's what we really should have made, but how come we only made this?
Okay.
So, but for whatever reason, I had that ability, and so I've capitalized on it over the years. There's been really lean times, and there's been really flush times financially, but I believe that's because money cycles.
Definitely.
And where, where sometimes one part of, let's say, the United States is in a financial crunch, another part of the United States might be booming. And it was the same for the, I'm going to say, the brothel industry.
When you were brought on as a bookkeeper by David, because you're overseeing financials, were you seeing anything that was like, okay, this isn't looking right? Or is there any red flags here? Because that's like kind of where your expertise is coming in. So I was wondering, like, were you seeing anything that like was really preventing the business from flourishing?
Yes. In the 80s, and I'm going to say prior, a lady named Helen Carter was the original builder of the hacienda, and she was still alive when she was about 80 when I was in my mid-30s, and she would tell me what to look for. She'd say, it's very difficult to hire honest women. It's very difficult to hire honest staff. And I said, well, how do you know? So in all of our conversations, she said, when they have more money in their pocket than you do, or when, let's say, our bar is really the convenience of a bar, because really we're a brothel. But she would say, certain percentages, if you have the bar is this percentage, the ladies should be this percentage. So there were things that she knew that the accountant couldn't teach me. So all of that computed in my head for me to understand. And then I took a lot of leadership classes that helped me understand how to look at the energy of staff or the ladies and say, are they telling me what I want to hear or the truth? And that helped. So it's been a very rounded education. And in the very beginning, it was really to help save David and my financial, what I call depression, which was all the money was going out, and so there was very little coming in to build a reserve to update things or to become, I'm going to say, a more desirable place for the clients to stop, you know. Yeah. And it had some wear and tear on it by the time I came along. And so it needed that fresh look to come about. But no one loans a brothel money. So it's necessary to make the money before you can spend the money. And you have to do the right thing with the money. And so after all of this time, I've become an expert. We may hear that term a lot, but an expert in walking in and feeling the energy, which is like putting your finger on the pulse of what is now Bella's Hacienda Ranch.
And here we are, 37 years later.
Oh my goodness. And never burn out.
Well, I mean, 37 years is an accomplishment, Bella. A huge congratulations to you. It's amazing, amazing feat. Let's start in terms of brothel ownership. Can you walk us through what that process might look like and what needs to be in place in order for that to happen?
All right. I'm going to begin by saying, since David was already on the license, in order to add me to the license, I had to go everything new buyer, potential owner would go through. I had to have the FBI check. They looked through my financials. They looked through my personal history. Did I have any connection with crime or anything that would tarnish the industry? All right, and it was at that time the city of Wells used the gaming license application, and it was probably about 50 pages long and had to have all sorts of documentation along with fingerprints and all of these beautiful things. And in order for someone else besides me to own a brothel, they have to buy an existing license in an existing location. And so when I first came in the 80s, there really were 32 licenses available.
Wow.
Now there's only about 19 or 20 that are active, you know, doing business today as. Wow. And then once an applicant fills out the stack of paperwork, then it goes to whatever sheriff's department or police department that would investigate the application. And of course, there's a fee for that. But once the application is reviewed, then whether it's the chief of police or the sheriff's department designee, they would appear in front of whatever the governing body is in a county or, in my case, an incorporated city of Wells. And they would report their findings. And I'm going to say pretty simply put by, they recommend that council entertain granting the license to whatever the person is. Right now, they're male owned.
Right.
There were still a few female owners up until, I'm going to say, probably 10 years ago, but now it's me. And I know there's Madame Suzette, but I don't know how that worked out with Dennis and whether she's really an owner or not. I don't know. So, but I know that I'm the longest standing because I was 10 years ahead of Dennis off.
Right.
So I know that it's really a woman's industry, even though it seems to be male owned.
Mm-hmm.
And even if a gentleman were to come and purchase my license, it would be wise for them to have a woman that they put in as madam or a manager or someone that can help with the flow of the business.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to do that because I'm on a different course,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
different journey.
Definitely. And again, 37 years in the business and being a woman owned and also sex worker operated, I think is a huge accomplishment as well, because as you mentioned, not only are these brothels, it doesn't sound like they are growing. I'm in the strip industry. I'm a stripper, so like we are finding that a lot of strip clubs are dying off and not many of them are opening up. I wonder, is the same thing happening for brothels as well?
I believe, Steph, that I am running and happen to own the most progressive brothel in Nevada.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Nevada has proven in their rural areas that legalization works. We don't have STDs. We have 100% clean and clear of even like HIV. Never had a case. And the other brothels seem to be stuck in a paradigm of, even though the ladies are independent contractors, they operate under a contract that makes them look like they have to follow the rules and regulations as if they were an employee.
Right.
So that's archaic.
Yes.
If the legislature of Nevada granted them the right to have a Nevada state business license that they buy every year for $200 that says sole proprietor, then that is what they are. Mm-hmm. They then become part of the NRS, Independent Contractor Code. Mm-hmm. And they have the right to run their business. What is the blueprint of their business under the umbrella of Bella's? Mm-hmm. Now, I have rules that I have to follow from the Wells City Brothel Code. It does have to match. If there's something that they really want to do that would put me in a place of a code infraction, then it has to be removed. I have to say, look, mm-hmm. This isn't something you can do here in this way, operating your business this way. And so the ladies that I work with are really working to structure and evolve their business as a courtesan. They're entrepreneurial. Mm-hmm. They have to figure out how to always have money in their pocket and how to manage that, how to advertise, how are they going to end their career and in what financial condition mm-hmm. will they be in, right? It's and I don't want to get off track, but this is something at Bella's that's part of the criteria for them to work there, for them to hang their shingle there. Mm-hmm. A doctor has the same Nevada state business license. I do too. Mine just costs more. Mm-hmm. So we're really all in the same spot as independent, entrepreneurial, business owners.
Mm-hmm. I love that you stress that, because again, this happens with a lot of sex workers too. We are independent contractors, but there's too many things like middle management or upper management trying to implement rules which almost like they're trying to make you an employee, but they're not giving those employee benefits as if you were one, which I find really, really problematic, and also rampant in our industry. In terms of your hiring processes, because you were talking a little bit about that, can you kind of walk us through what might entail, or if someone wanted to go work at Bella's, what happens if someone wanted to audition, or how does that whole thing work?
On the website, bellas.us, there's a place that a person can fill out a cortisone, cortisone application. And it has a few different categories, but mostly, at the bottom, it is where you attach a couple of pictures. And there's a spot where they can put their phone number or, their email address. And I'm the one that returns the call from the application. I do this because I'm a business owner. They're going to be a business owner. They need to know who they're teaming up with. Is there an energetic match? Do they feel like I'm the one that can bridge their fear of, let's say, traveling all the way to Bella's, not knowing how it works exactly and how much money they're going to make? Am in my interview, my very first question is always, how can I help? Mm-hmm. My next question is, what are your dreams and goals? My third question is, how do you feel about sensual sexual services? Mm-hmm. Somewhere down the line, I do ask them how old they are. and I do that because we in Nevada have a 21 minimum for working ladies. And then from there, there's things that I tell them, like the difference between working at Bella's Hacienda Ranch and working at the other brothels. Mm-hmm. If they want to give one of the other brothels a go first, I'm going to say 99.9% of the time, I will never see them, ever. Mm. Because the experience is so awkward in this old paradigm platform that they use, that them coming to Bella's after that means they've learned all the incorrect things first. Mm. And so it doesn't match. It's too much to unlearn. Mm-hmm. In some of the houses, what do you mean I have to sleep with my shoes on in order to make a lineup? I've heard it. So, wow. Is it every house? No. But I have heard it. And I think the other, the other thing, that it's not to knock what they're doing, it's to tell the ladies honestly, here's the difference. Whichever you choose, just know in your heart that you're making the right choice. If you say, well, I already promised them, and I hope it works, and then I'll see you, Belle. I go into some of my other Madame Bella phrases, like, you've got to know, if you hope, you're going the wrong way. There's got to be something in you that says, this is right for me. It will work. Scared, yes, but it'll work. And so my interviews can take up to like 40 minutes, an hour. I don't cut it short. I don't want to know, when are they going to be there? When are they going to arrive? I want to get into why they're choosing this career. Why have they contacted me? And in my interviewing, there might be 40 women in a month that I interview, and 5 come in. Mm-hmm. it's because of financial reasons. They just can't get there. But I always want to make sure that I've left them knowing more about Bella's and maybe themselves than if they had never had the conversation with me.
Mm-hmm.
So I always finish an interview with, do you have any questions? How do you feel about this? I can tell you're nervous, and those things, once we get through that, they're really going to buy a ticket and they're really going to come, then dates matter. And then I'll go into the other parts that talk about, this is a house run by the women. Mm-hmm. Are you good with cooking for yourself? Are you good with keeping your room clean? How about laundry? How about being on time for the CB radio? I was able to remove the lockdown policy that Wells had in the last meeting in December 2019. Because these ladies that work with me are incredibly intelligent. They don't need somebody to look over their shoulder or tell them they've got to be in by 5 o'clock. Mm-hmm. So I was very successful at that. And in the unique structure at Bella's, it's important for anyone listening to understand there's only one Bella's. Is it perfect? No. This is map making. There's no other house doing this. And this is the only house where everyone makes money, and good money, unless they get in their own way for a minute. Mm-hmm. And as soon as they get out of their own way, the money's there for them again. Mm-hmm. So it's an amazing thing to be part of. And it really happened because of COVID. People didn't want to work anymore. Mm-hmm. And so it was just like I was just massaged in that direction. And it's working better than I could have imagined with the way women have evolved. Young women that really have a calling.
Yeah. I mean, you got something there because you have witnessed the ranch since the 80s. And up until, what is it? It's 2023 this year. So you've seen some changes. You've seen some stuff.
Oh, yes. I mean, in the 80s, and this is silly, but my first question might have been, do you have teeth? I know it sounds silly, but it was an important question. Women had pimps. Women, and then it went through the a couple decades of drug use and pimps, and then HIV and condoms and lube and all of that having to evolve. I'm like pre-condom. The biggest problem for working ladies was pregnancy. Wow. And D&Cs, because it would take them off the floor. Mm-hmm. So I truly have seen so much. But 2023, it's magical. It's magical to see the way women are now, that they're really putting their money in their own pocket.
Yes.
And they're going to school. And it's beautiful. I'm really proud of them.
I love to hear that.
And I also want to say that the ladies that work for me, they wouldn't fit in another house. They're self-starters. We need to be self-starters in order to be successful. Otherwise, I don't know anybody that wants to get to the end of their career and go, boy, I'm so glad I was mediocre.
Yeah.
That is never going to look really good.
Well, you got to be a self-starter in this industry, no matter what corner of the industry you are. Because, again, to akin what you were saying earlier, we are a sole proprietorship. And there's a lot of self-motivation that you have to have in order to be successful in this business. Speaking of success, because you've been around for so long, like what is Bella's key to success? What makes a successful brothel?
Okay, we've all heard this. And it is 1, 2, and 3, by the way. Location, location, and location. All right? You know, I mentioned to you I'm sitting in Bella's restaurant office, and Tom Hanks stood there to get an espresso one day at the counter, and he said, "Well, everybody stops in Wells at some point. It's the crossroads." Mm-hmm. And so he took his coffee and he left, right? And besides location, there has to be what I call a magnetism, all right? A brothel without ladies is going to be a bar. Mm-hmm. And the ladies have to show up before the clients are going to show up. There has to be a good way to reach the clients as they're passing through. And so for many, many, many decades, the CB radio was our big tool. It's a citizens band radio that sits on a table and you talk into a microphone on channel 19 and you invite them over. You invite them or you pick them up. In today's world, you got to pick them up because companies are tracking everybody, mm-hmm. You know, like let's say in the trucking field. But now, besides being able to go over and pick up the men that are long hauling freight, that by the way, we really get to thank them because without them, the country would fold. Mm-hmm. That Citizens Band radio or CB radio may seem archaic, mm-hmm. but it is still something that goes out on the airwaves and you have no idea where it's going to go. I mean, it could go to, in a lady's mind, you know, I'm ready, I'm out at work, I'm going to describe myself, and I just know that the next guy through the door, he's going to pick me, right? And for no apparent reason, a car drives up, the doorbell rings, and she gets chosen. Now, how does that work? Mm-hmm. Except there has to be something to what we call the law of attraction. So that marketing matters.
Oh, yeah.
If we had their cell phones, we could call them, but we don't. So what we get to do is use a tool that's becoming more and more popular again, mm-hmm. and use it to our very, you know, if nothing else, to invite them for a complimentary tour, no obligation. And so it's a wonderful thing to be able to take and the successful brothel that we're talking about is just incorporating those things. And to make sure that when that doorbell rings that everybody's ready. Mm-hmm. There's no dress rehearsals. And it is about teamwork and trust and working together as a group of women from very different backgrounds. Mm-hmm. And I'm really happy to say that it's working better all the time. So it's actually been in this map making beginning process since I'm going to say the end of 2020. Mm-hmm. But no one ever says how long it's really going to take. But you know, I know it sounds odd to say, well, there's no manager, there's no middle person that somebody answers to. It's me. Mm-hmm. And so that creates something that's very unique. And yes, it's in its test period, but I feel very strongly that that's where women are at. That's what they're after. and working, whether they work in a brothel or outside of a brothel, they have an idea of how they want to run their business, how they want to market themselves, how they want to set themselves up to succeed. And I really honor that. So
Yeah.
I'm never saying everyone has to work in a brothel that wants to do sensual sexual services. I'm just saying for those that are in alignment with working that way, it's a great option to test. The one thing I didn't mention that I believe is important, when a lady comes in or during the interview, I let her know there are no contracts. If she gets there and it doesn't work for her, and she comes to me on day number 2, and she goes, Belle, I gotta go. It's just not quite me yet. I want to just go dance. Okay. Do you have a way home? Do you have enough gas money? And to me, that is the ultimate trust, to have that integrity between women that says, this is who I am, this is how we can communicate without a piece of paper.
Right.
That says you will come in for 2 weeks or this will happen to you. That's very unprogressive. So that's one of the big things that I like that has evolved.
I love hearing that. Sometimes, and again, this maybe is a stereotype, but also there is some truth to it as well. But there's so much cattiness amongst women and amongst our industry, within the industry. So it's really refreshing to hear this perspective, to really witness true progression in our industry. And I think you should definitely be proud of that. It's such an accomplishment. It really brings us together, provides unity.
Really thankful that you can hear that it's a good thing to have happen. That still may not be for everyone, because maybe they aren't quite that self-starter and they really want someone to put those parameters around them, and that helps them be successful, and that's okay too. But as we are moving forward as an industry, it's okay to never criticize what each individual lady desires as how she's going to be successful. So whether it's tight rules and regulations or almost all her way, right, as far as how to run her business and how to do it in a group of ladies that are working to do and evolve in their own unique way as businesswomen, and still know that they're in an industry that very few people understand. And so to be able to move past that and to be able to say, it doesn't matter what they say or think. I'm going this way because I know I'm supposed to go this way. I'm comfortable with this. I don't have to tell everybody what I do. But I know I matter. I know to that last guy or that couple that I made a difference in their life, and I don't even have to know exactly how.
Wow. It's really great that you give them the agency to do this and to empower them. And along with that empowerment, I know that you also founded the Onesta Foundation as well, which is a nonprofit organization based in Nevada that provides awareness and advocacy for promoting legalization and the regulation of prostitution. I would love for you to talk about the Onesta Foundation if you have a bit of time, Bella. I'd love to hear more about that.
I would love to talk about the Onesta Foundation and what I call its successes. And it's, I won't say failures, but ahead of its time. All right. It was supposed to help in 2018, when there was so much from the religious sector in certain areas of the state that really wanted to put pressure to close down certain houses. And I've been a lobbyist several times, typically for the Onesta or Bella's Hacienda Ranch. And it was interesting how the Onesta wasn't really understood. People couldn't comprehend that an owner and ladies could actually come together. And my initial idea was to give them what I call a woman owner platform, so that what they were doing, which was the advocacy, would have just more substance to it. Okay? Meaning, I'd already done this for so long, leading women, that if they had an owner that was on their side, that it would move forward quicker.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there were a lot of women that worked at some other houses that didn't understand that. They were really looking at me as just another owner, and I was wanting to group all these ladies together, and it wasn't very well received.
Mm-hmm.
So now it isn't, even though it's listed as a 501c3, it isn't exactly funded by people that donate and people that really want to be part of this idea of the awareness, the advocacy, and creating more places in more states where people can go for this type of service.
Mm-hmm.
I still believe it should happen. I still believe with all my heart that there's so many people out there that don't have that significant other.
Mm-hmm.
And they really have sexual needs. And that's why in rural Nevada it's worked out so well.
Mm-hmm.
But right now it's more of a research, it's a support resource that helps people that want to know more.
Mm-hmm.
I'm never going to give up on the idea that designated places shouldn't be allowed. I'm never going to say that women shouldn't work as independent contractors outside of a house without being concerned about arrests and things like that. It's just such a big topic to get people comfortable with their sexuality. And that Onesta Foundation was supposed to help, I'm going to say, perpetuate a forward movement.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think what you're doing with the Onesta Foundation is great work. And in terms of spreading the awareness of legalization, because that's what you found has worked in the state of Nevada. Also, before we head into questions, I also want to just gather your thoughts on decriminalization of sex work and what your thoughts are on that.
As far as decriminalization, I'm going to speak never as a professional or an expert, all right? Because I've been dealing with, and in part of an industry that has proven for over 50 years that the blueprint works. Mm-hmm. All right, it works in rural Nevada. Would it work in Reno and Las Vegas? Yes. I just don't want it, but it would work. It just needs a designated district. I spoke in front of the assembly at one time about it, the Nevada State Assembly, and said, look, it just needs an area. And then you wouldn't have the trucks with the big semi on the back with a picture of a lady and a phone number.
Right.
And it would just take, and it would make it either an adult town in certain areas, mm-hmm. or a town where the whole family's welcome without the cards being passed the street. Right. So I would like to see decriminalization personally, because I see nothing wrong with two consensual adults
Yes.
engaging in something that's their private matter.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't really matter what they exchanged. They could have exchanged money. They could have exchanged a sack of potatoes. But it's their business. Did it harm anyone else? Answer is no.
No.
It didn't harm anyone else. Leave them alone.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I feel. When I say decriminalization and could we work towards legalization, that just puts women and clients that are looking for that experience together. It makes it easier for them to find one another.
Mm-hmm.
And it keeps law enforcement out of it. While really there's been no opportunity yet to get some traction on how will decriminalization really work.
Right. Well said. We have covered so much in this episode today, Bella, but Twitter is just as interested, and my audience is really interested as well. They had a couple questions for you as well, so I feel like it might be time for us to go into that section of the show. The first question being, navigating all the laws and regulations on a national, provincial, county, municipal level, even before you find space to rent or buy, seems like a nightmare. And once established, laws change and your license is in jeopardy again. How to deal with that stress and uncertainty.
And the very last part, how to deal with the stress and
uncertainty.
Oh, certainty. Okay. Nevada has what we'll call like the NRS codes that deal with the legalization of brothels and where they can be, and it's basically a county or an incorporated city with a population less than 600,000. Used to be 400,000, but Vegas and Reno got a little close to that number, so they upped it. And of course, that's changes in law. The NRS code is very, very archaic. It uses terms that should have long been replaced. It was basically written at a time when they didn't really understand how to write it to be progressive. But because there's been no incidents, yes, we do occasionally get legislators, whether it's the Assembly or the Senate, that want to write a new bill to close us down.
Right.
They've been in the rural areas for so long, and we are so important financially to the communities that the legislators merely make sure that the bill is never read. They just never have time for it. It causes the state no problems. Every lady donates another $200 to the state. They want the money. We've never been an issue. People in general think that things are always changing with the rules and the regulations and all of this, and typically it isn't. I can speak for the city of Wells. They don't, even though they voted years and years ago for there to be 2 houses in Wells, they never wanted to go out on the street and put their hand up and say, by the way, I'm really for brothels. They don't want to be asked. We keep a low profile. The ladies shop in town. Everyone is upstanding citizens, educated. We are only an asset. There's going to be 5 truck stops in Wells. We have no sex hustling in any of the parking lots because there's brothels in Wells. That isn't the case in any other state where there's truck stops. There's going to be illegal activity. So we are a huge benefit. We don't have sex crimes. You know, there are so many benefits to a community or to a county that they leave us alone. And it's probably I'm going to say it is a business that even though people think it's high risk, it's been here for over 50 years and it is as low risk as you can get. And we don't have STDs. But I don't know if all of them out there can say that.
Right.
So we're really at the top when it comes to public safety. I think we can be proud of that too.
100%.
Yes.
So many things to be proud about. There is one more question as well that came in from Twitter, Bella. Sex workers are having increasing problems with banks and other financial service providers getting cut off due to their work. What is Bella's experience with that?
I've heard a lot about that stuff from the ladies.
Yes.
And over the past 2 years, since I have chosen to be associated and a client of a locally owned credit union, that's where the ladies bank. First of all, they all know me, and then they understand what the ladies do, and they're getting a 1099, they're getting a check. It's not their business.
Yeah.
It's a legal business in Nevada. And like I said, in this particular case, these women are working legally. And I would think if a person's a dancer and they're working legally, they should have the right to have no judgment, stigma, stereotyping. It isn't their business. They're paying their taxes. The bank's lending out their money. Leave them alone.
Yeah. And I feel like a lot of it is like either the state or the laws or police trying to get in between our business or people's private business. And I feel like they have no part in that, or they should have no part in that. Personally, that's what I think.
I agree. There are some people that shouldn't wear a badge, and they do. But they know who they are.
Yes. We don't have to name names.
No. Well, we don't. We'll be cool.
Well, Bella, it was such a pleasure having you on the show today.
Well, I really appreciate you even being open to inviting me on. I've covered what seems like a lot, and yet it's not very much. So in the future, if you'd ever like to do this again, we can expand on it and help answer those questions.
Absolutely.
You know, and I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled that you're out here doing this, and I'm sure you never have a free second in your day, and then you go dance too. So good for you.
Thank you. And we definitely love to have you on again at some point, maybe for a part 2, because again, I just feel like we're just scratching the surface here on this topic. And I know a lot of people are very curious about it. I do have a lot of listeners that are in the Nevada area, so it's really cool to just being able to provide this information out there for people to kind of just learn more about what is available. But for everyone listening, and before we let you go, where can we find you? Where can we find more information about Bella's Hacienda Ranch and whatever information you want to include?
Well, there's of course the bellas.us website, and there is a place to fill out what I call an email that will come. It has to come to me. I answer the emails, right? And you know, a lot of times it's the gentleman. And I usually can respond within a few hours because I know it's Your questions are important. I understand and can hear urgency in between the words. So bellas.us, find one of those little things that says how to reach. And then I know that on the honestafoundation.org, that there is a place to email me. If someone wants me to come and talk, I'm happy to come and talk. I've done some lecturing in the Great Basin Community College at their upper level business classes. That's I love it. I like to help answer people's questions and to help them decide where they're going in life, what's important to them. So those two places are the very best. As you know, since I deal with sensual sexual services, social media is difficult to develop because they want to shut you down all the time. And there weren't even any bad pictures on there or bad things said. So I believe we get to begin again. But at the bottom of the website, once we actually tweet again, look for that. And of course, I am sure that we can somehow get it right this time.
Thank you so much, Bella, and sorry for all the hiccups with the technology today, but it was, again, I'm dropping Riverside after this, but it was lovely having you on the show today. You're such a well-spoken person, just an expert. You have so much expertise on this topic, so I really value you as a person and just coming onto the show and sharing this with the audience. For everyone else that is listening at home, it is Stripped by Sia on Twitter, Stripped by Sia on Instagram. You can best find me at those platforms. I'm very responsive on there. If you wanted to go ahead and pitch yourself on the show, I'm open ears, looking at developing some more episodes for later in the season. And it is new episodes every single Sunday, dropping at midnight Pacific Standard Time. And if you want to, again, support the show, it is patreon.com/strippedbysia. And I will have some cool announcements maybe later on, maybe next month. I don't know, not sure when I can announce some things, but some cool things brewing in the works here too. But with that being said, that is all for today. Thank you all for listening. Thanks again, Bella, for coming on the show today.
Oh, you're welcome. You are a delight.
Thank you. You're listening to Stripped by Sia, hosted, produced, and edited by Steph Sia. Music by Ted D. Graphic design by Maria Bellandarama, and photography by Ian Dabrin. Are you a sex worker looking to build a new website or a website redesign? Then you'll want to consider Fox Digital. They did a fantastic job designing my website, Stripped by Sia. If you want your website done, mention that you're a listener of the show at foxdigital.design for 20% off. Tell them I sent ya.